Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about how we can analyze this posture. So recent classes we have discussed about what is an ideal posture and what are the forces or what are the controlling system which is maintaining this upright posture. And we also had seen that what are the forces which can change the posture and how the body is responding to that unequilibrium forces and maintain that normal equilibrium in the posture. So now we need to analyze the posture in order to find whether the person or the subject has any deformity from the normal posture. So for that we need to define what is a posture. So as we said in the previous classes, we know that a good posture is a posture in which all the body parts are arranged in a proper manner. So today we are going to see how we can analyze this posture and what are the criteria, what are the things which we need to look when we are analyzing this posture. So analysis of standing posture. Why it is important? Why we need to analyze this posture? So the main aim to analyze the posture is to identify any deviations from this normal posture, because the deviations in normal posture can cause some abnormal forces in that particular area, and because of this abnormal forces, either muscle or the joint surfaces can go for early degeneration or early pathological changes. So in order to avoid all these degenerative or early pathological changes, we need to identify what is the problem with the posture. So why it is important? Deviations from optimal standing posture that are large enough to cause excessive strain in passive structures and to require high levels of muscle activity need to be identified, and remedial actions must be taken. And for example, most of the people are complaining of low back pain. In the low back pain, most of the about majority of low back pain are happening because of some posture abnormalities or because of some uneven forces which are acting on lumbar spine. In the lumbar spine, both the extensors and the flexors has to be worked in an equilibrium to maintain its normal curve and to maintain its normal distribution to the lower body. And if in case any changes from this normal alignment can cause some abnormal tensions either in the flexor group or in the extensor group. So because of this unequilibrium, the lower back can go for a high amount of stress, and it will result in some severe pain or some early changes in the disc or some early degeneration in the joint surface. So we have to be identify that particular problem in the patients or in the subject in order to prevent or to take a remedial action to correct or prevent those postural abnormalities. And second one, if faulty postures are habitual and assumed continuously on daily basis, the body will not recognize these faulty postures as abnormal, and over time, structural adaptations such as ligamentous and muscle shortening or lengthening will occur. For this, the best example is a tabletop worker, or you can say a computer worker. So if they are not in a proper sitting posture, if they are having some abnormal sitting posture, or if there is any abnormal posture which is caused by the chair or with the height of table, it can result in some abnormal posture. So as it is a long-term job, their body have a high tendency to adapt to that particular posture, and it will result in some muscular changes. Some muscles can go for shortening, some muscles can go for lengthening. In those stooping posture, that means the computer workers are always lean front to the table, and it can result in a stooping posture. In the stooping posture, the anterior chest muscle, that means the pectoralis major and the minor, can go for tightness or shortening, and the thoracic extensor group of muscles can go for lengthening. So over a time, this particular posture can result in a abnormal body posture. That means the body will adapt to that abnormality and the body start to think that the abnormality is a normal for that particular person. So that are the things which are happening in a abnormal posture. So this is the reason why we need to identify those postural changes, and this is the reason why we need to correct that abnormal posture. So whenever we analyze the posture, we have to be looking the patient from front and from the sideways also. That means in the sagittal view and in the frontal view. The frontal view is the one in which we are looking the person from the anterior or in front of the patient, we are observing the patient. And second one is sagittal view. That means that we are observing the patient from the sideways or the lateral view. First one is a sagittal view. That means we are looking the patient in the side view. Observation analysis of posture in the sagittal plane involves locating body segments in relation to a line of gravity. So as we said, in a normal ideal posture, the line of gravity has to be passing through all the joints. But in the human body, we have some exceptions that the line of gravity has to maintain a normal equilibrium with all the compartment which is in front of the line of gravity and behind the line of gravity. So whenever we look into the sagittal view, this is the first one which we are looking. That means how the body segments are arranged in relation with this line of gravity. A plumb line or a line with weight on one end dropped from the ceiling and passing to the external auditory meatus of the ear may be used to represent the line of gravity. So this is the easiest method which we are adapting to assess the lateral view of the posture. So for that, what we are using, either we'll use a plumb line or a line with weight on one end. It is something similar to the structures which the carpenters are using. The carpenters will use a particular instrument which will be able to maintain, or which will able the carpenter to assess the normal alignment of particular structures. That means they will be having a line with a hanging weight. So whenever they drop that particular weight, it will be corresponding to the line of gravity of that particular structure. So the same thing can be adapted to human body also. So we also have some instrument like that. That means there will be a weight underneath the line, and we will be using that to measure the line of gravity in the body. So the landmark in which we are using this particular instrument is the external auditory meatus. So this is the first point of contact where the line of gravity is having in the human body. So this external auditory meatus is used as a reference point to use this line of weight on the line. So this is how that will show. So this is your ear, and then we will be having that external auditory meatus. So with the relation with that external auditory meatus, we will be passing the line of gravity. So in the normal standing posture, the line of gravity will pass anterior to the cervical spine, through the shoulder joint, through the elbow joint, through the lower lumbar segments, and through the hip joint, knee joint, and the ankle joint, just in front of ankle joint. So this is how a normal body's segments are arranged in lateral view. So if you look in the cervical region, the cervical spines are placed posterior to the plumb line, and the shoulder joint is passing in shoulder joint. The plumb line is passing through the shoulder joint. In elbow joint, it's just passing through the elbow joint. Hip, in the lower lumbar region, it's passing through the bodies of lower lumbar vertebrae. It passing over the hip joint. It passing through the knee joint, and in the ankle joint, it passes just anterior to the ankle joint. So this is the bodies. So this is much more easier one. So this is how the body segments are arranged in lateral view. So in an optimal erect posture, ankle joint In optimal erect posture, the ankle joint is in neutral position or midway between dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. The line of gravity passes slightly anterior to the lateral malleus. So that's what you can see in this. In the normal posture, the ankle joint is in a neutral position. It's not either for dorsiflexion or for plantar flexion, and the line of gravity is passing just anterior to the ankle joint or the just anterior to the lateral malleus. Knee joint, the knee joint will be in full extension in erect posture, and the line of gravity passes anterior to the midline of knee joint and posterior to the patella. This places the line of gravity just anterior to the knee joint axis. So that's how it's passing through the knee joint. Next is hip and pelvis. The hip is in neutral position and the pelvis is with level with no anterior or posterior tilt in a level pelvis position. That means the pelvis has to be in a neutral position. It should not be in anterior tilting or in a posterior tilting, and the hip joint will also in a neutral position. The lines connecting the symphysis pubis and the anterior superior iliac line are in a vertical position. Look at this. So in a normal posture, this pubic symphysis and the anterior superior iliac spine should be in a vertical line. So that's about pelvis. The lines connecting ASIs and posterior superior iliac spine are in a horizontal line. In this optimal position, the line of gravity passes slightly posterior to the axis of hip joint through the greater trochanter. So that's about happening in hip joint. It passes just posterior to the greater trochanter in the hip joint. Next is lumbosacral and sacroiliac joints. The line of gravity passes through the body of fifth lumbar vertebrae and close to the axis of rotation of the lumbosacral joint. So in this picture, you can identify that the line of gravity passing exactly in the lower lumbar region or in the L5 vertebrae, it passing through the body and the joint between sacroiliac joint. The vertebral column. The line of gravity will pass posterior to the axis of rotation of the cervical and the lumbar vertebrae or through the bodies of vertebrae anterior to the thoracic vertebrae and through the body of fifth lumbar vertebrae. So this is how the line of gravity passing through the vertebral column. In the cervical and lumbar, it passing posterior to the axis of rotation, and in thoracic region, it is passing anterior to the thoracic vertebrae, and if when it comes to down into the lumbar region, in the fifth lumbar vertebrae, it is actually passing through the body of fifth lumbar vertebrae. And in head, the line of gravity in relation to the head passes slightly anterior to the transverse axis of rotation for flexion and extension of head. The plumb line extending from the ceiling should pass through the external auditory meatus in the external auditory meatus of ear. So this is the summary of how the line of gravity are passing to the body segments. If you look into the atlanto-occipital joint, anterior to the transverse axis for flexion and extension, and the forces which is keeping this particular position is with the flexion of cervical or the atlanto-occipital joint. In cervical region, the line of gravity passing posterior to the cervical region, and there will be an extension force which is maintaining that particular posture. And in the thoracic region, it is actually passing anterior to the line of gravity, and it will cause some flexion movement. In the lumbar region, it is passing posterior in the lumbar region, but when it comes to the L5 or the fifth lumbar vertebrae, it is actually passing through the body of lumbar vertebrae, and it will cause an extension movement. In the sacroiliac joint, it is actually passing anterior to the sacroiliac joint, and it will cause some nutation forces. And in the hip joint, it is passing posterior or to the greater trochanter or to the hip joint, and it will cause an extension movement. In the knee joint, it is passing anterior to the axis of rotation or the knee joint or through the knee joint, and it will cause an extension movement. And in the ankle joint, it is just passing just anterior to the ankle joint, and it will cause a dorsiflexion movement. Next is we are looking for what are the deviations which we can found in sagittal view. When it comes to the foot and toes, the common deformities are clotos and hamartos. So this is the cloto. So this is the deformity which we can found in the lateral view, and this is the hamarto. In knee joint, flex knee posture or the hyperextended posture we can found. That means genu recurvator can be found. The hyperextension of knee is known as genu recurvator. So this genu recurvator or a flex posture of knee joint can be found in the sagittal view. And pelvis, excessive amount of anterior tilting can be identified using this lateral view. In vertebral column, excessive amount of lordosis or kyphosis can be identified. The term lordosis refers to the normal sagittal plane anteriorly converse curves in the cervical and the lumbar regions of vertebral column. So the lordotic curve, that means the anterior convex curve which we can found in the cervical and in the lumbar region are known as lordotic curve. The term kyphosis refers to the normal sagittal plane posterior convex curves in the thoracic and the sacral regions of the vertebral column. So the posterior convex curves are identified as kyphotic curves, and the anterior convex curves are identified as lordotic or the lordosis curve. So this is the excessive amount of kyphosis. That means the thoracic posterior convex curve is increased. So that's what called as a high kyphosis. Also it is known as Dovger's hump or a gibbous. So this is the abnormalities which we can found in the vertebral region. So in this you can see that increased cervical curve, that means increased cervical lordosis, and increased lumbar curve or the increased lumbar lordosis, and an increased thoracic curve or the thoracic kyphosis. And forward head posture. Forward head posture is one which the head is positioned anteriorly and normal anterior cervical convexity is increased with the apex of lordotic cervical curve at considerable distance from the line of gravity in comparison with optimal posture. So this is the forward head posture. So in this forward head posture, you can see that there is an excessive cervical lordosis. So that's about the sagittal view.